Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is a Michael Miller trademark training video out to you because you're watching. Thank you and welcome. It's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates. The Core New Core. My patrons, especially, and anyone interested in surviving and thriving as a Pilates instructor. So I gave it away because the title, there's just two titles today, and the title of the email that went out today, that I got, is The Ultimate Pilates Exercise. Okay? And it's fascinating how the screen goes dark in order to show what's on a phone here, which is the image. Can you tell that that's someone upside down, hanging from the Cadillac bars, pressing out through their heels? And you might say, well, why is that? Why are they pressing out through their heels? Because it makes such a stronger end point and is the exact opposite of how you end a Pilates exercise, the Pilates mat, meaning you start lying down and you end standing up. And if you're really together in the standing up, then going upside down and like standing in air, upside down, in stillness, without wavering and quivering, in a stillness that you can stay in for as long as you feel okay with the grip in your hands, really, because being in your body upside down isn't a matter of what? Of your loading, because of the alignment that you're in, and you get that alignment from where? So go back through the last few days' broadcasts, where yesterday we talked about gravity, and the day before we talked about core new tension, and the day before that we talked about the core. So it's just a whimsical opinion and not meant to be an authoritative one or an exclusionary one. You can have whatever exercise you want as the ultimate Pilates exercise, or say that there is no such thing as an ultimate Pilates exercise, and I would be sympathetic to all of that spectrum of point of view. It's just that when you look at this picture, and if in some way you feel, see, that's the thing, if you feel there's an alignment in the picture, it's being sympathetic to the alignment that's there. As an observer, or in the observing. But the reason for Michael Miller Pilates, you could say, well, that's because it's lined up and it's upside down. And he's big on gravity, right? And so you're doing what you go from lying flat on your back to standing up, and then demonstrating that you can just turn upside down and be as together as you are standing up. Gives an indication of what? Of a degree of control that you have in your movement, right? So survival came in there somewhere, but I'm not sure where. And then control, I just mentioned, it's a demonstration of control. And to the point that you can come up into it with ease and grace, and without making a racket of the supporting apparatus, you come up into an upside down position that you settle into and can maintain for as long as you want to challenge your grip in your hands. It's not about where you are in space upside down, because you're, to me, obviously lined up because you're so at ease in what? In gravity, in the loading that your body is under when you're upside down. If you're holding by your hands, that means you're supported through your shoulders. And so much of that means then your stillness is, how well do you have control of the axis that runs through your shoulders in order to allow your hips and heels and ears to line up on that. So I call that image, okay, maybe I should just ask you as a question. How many endpoints of tension is that on a line? So if it's like this, how many endpoints are close to lining up? And I would say 5, right? Because the endpoints at the metatarsals are not lining up. Once you can stand on the ceiling in the air, inverted, at ease, with an endpoint at the ankles, and being very comfortable with that, it lays a good foundation for when you go to 6 points on a line and include your demi-point, which is there to be had. It's just not meant to be a pointed foot with a locked knee. And if you're taking pictures, show both ways. Feel both ways. All right, so I got a lovely email from a dear friend and student of mine, host of mine, that was hiking in a strange land and took a Pilates class and was complimented on her performance of the exercises. Now this has so much more to do with all that what she is and what she's capable of embracing. But she brought up a teaching aid I used to help her find her core. So what is her core? What is the core? So that's like 3 days ago. The core is a grip at the hips. Not just an image, just factually. The core makes a grip. Okay? And that's different than a squeeze. So if this is a squeeze where my fingers are pressed against my hand like this, that's a squeeze. But this is a grip where there's an involution to the effort. Now, I'm getting tired of holding this. Now, my student brought up my big black marble. So this is heavy, and so what are we talking about? We're talking about gravity, right? And because it's heavy, it's since you can feel it. It's like I need a little trampoline now to put it on for how I put it on the student's stomach to help encourage them to find the musculature to actually make the grip. And see, that's where, does anybody even talk about that or really address that? or get explicit about what the core is and as a grip, how you develop it, and the role of the adductors, and so many things. But a long time ago, even back then, when this is resting upon your lower belly, and you don't want to push out on the marble to have it fall off of your belly, that means not using some muscles while you try to accomplish what you're doing, engaging others. So it becomes a matter of distinguishing muscle engagement and what muscles you use and what muscles you don't use in order to have the condition of core be in your effort. And then how do you develop that condition into more strength and more control? Because control is the target, right? You may not all have a marble like this, though it's a great teaching aid, because it makes sensational the kind of muscular involvement you're looking for when you go to engage your core, and the kind of muscular engagement that you're not looking for. Okay? So, if you laid on your back and just made a ridge of your fingers, like this, down close to your pubic bone, a little higher, but you sort of pressed in your own stomach. Do this with guidance, or don't do it at all. Just do it in your mind. But to make something sensational, for me as an instructor, is the point. And especially for a person that has no understanding of how their body works, or what they may feel or not feel, depending upon what their body does. With a ridge of their fingers pressing into their lower belly, and you tell them to lift their head and observe what happens, it can be a real shock that the rectus abdominis fires, that stomach muscles fire when you're lifting your head. How can that be? And then the comparison to that as a training technique would be to say, okay, now you'll still feel it under your fingers, but try to still lift your head the same amount and feel it less under your fingers. Accomplish it from somewhere else. Distinguishing sensation, right? And making it Yoda-esque in that you're asking them to discern the difference. Not only that, but to find whatever it takes to make the difference. And in so doing, as an instructor, you're asking a student to find more muscles than just the ones that leapt right in to accomplish the task. And that is effectively distributing the load of lifting your head across more musculature. And that's what Pilates plays with, right? How do we engage the body to distribute the load as efficiently as possible? So this has to do with this. So this is a thing I have in my luggage, so I know how heavy my bags are, because it matters about whether or not they'll even carry them, let alone how much it will cost you. So a scale to be able to judge weight. Because why? Because loading matters. And when you are connected, at least from this point of view, when you understand core new tension and find an embodiment of that within yourself, it doesn't matter what orientation you are in space, through the tension that you create between the axes of rotation in your body, it's naturally stretching, elongating, so that's the ultimate exercise. I had a really gifted teacher I never knew come in for a lesson, and the roll down was just so magic that I got scared and didn't know what to do next. So I went right to the inversion. I said, stand over there. I demonstrated. I came down and I said, do that. His eyes were like this big because you don't usually leap to that big of an expression of anything in the progressiveness of learning Pilates. But in the doing and in being in the inversion, it showed that his shoulders were out of position. And that gave me something to work with for, is it a lack of just knowing where to be in, or is it a lack of flexibility? But it gave me the beginning of a string by seeking a degree of movement that would reveal degree of control. And so when you can be upside down, at ease, you know where you are in space and you know how to engage your body to be in it so that you minimize the load of your body, right? So, for me, in my opinion, that's the last exercise. It's dangerous at home, but don't do anything without proper supervision. And my number 2 was finding your core, and that's the finding your core is literally taking out of action an overly eager rectus abdominis, which is one of the muscles coming down the front of your stomach, and finding how to engage yourself. And of course, I always fly TVA, which is a joke about the transverse abdominis. Sounds like an airline, TVA. Well, how do you get to core new tension between the shoulder rotation and the hip rotation? I fly TVA, meaning that the transverse abdominis is this major muscular connection that connects the two different rotational dynamics. Why it's so important. Why I saw a workshop go by that was just focused on the TVA that made me feel like it was the TVA as an airlines, because where does it get you? It gets you to core new tension between your shoulders and your hips. And that's an emphasis on muscles that matter compared to a rectus abdominis if used to push out or to resist an involution of grip within the pelvis. It's all very natural and organic and complicated in the biology's expression of being biology, and yet still able to engage in the physics, in the rotation, in establishing the grip. And so the student that I think remembers the marble, remembers the core being a grip, and that where that grip comes from controls your range, for instance, and how you express yourself, because you never let the loading of your body exceed the control of your grip. Somebody bought my Udemy course. Was that you? I hope that means that they did it because I told them to, and that they're getting the PowerPoint file downloaded into their phone or their laptop or their tablet so that they can have that in their hand as they deliver the 5 things of a presentation meant to explain CT and MMP. My last comment here I'd share with you is about gravity. See, gravity. Why is that the ultimate exercise? Because it's within gravity that you're showing control, and you're inverted, and you're in alignment, right? And you don't seem to be stressed at all, and it's not taking that much effort, because some of your own load is feeding into your ability to engage yourself into a better alignment. Okay. The investment and the return. Gravity is the medium in which you seek to coordinate capabilities. Gravity is the medium in which we seek to coordinate capabilities. Gravity is the jungle. The Pilates instructor seeks to coordinate being, thinking, and observing. Reaching for a state of being in the body in the moment of the doing. There's an experience that comes out of that. At least as long as you're alive. Because life can't live forever. Read between the lines and see behind the curtain. Evaluate points of view. Understand the MMP point of view is an ideal point of view based on a theory that an ideal is there. Might not be. The ideal comes from the evidence right in Joe's book. The first 3 things that you're presenting. Udemy.com, how to survive as a Pilates instructor. Get the PowerPoint thing in your hand. Then, anything you add beyond what's there, it makes it your presentation versus somebody else's. But the 5 things that are there, 3 of them are bedrock, and then interpretations of that bedrock. 1 is an identification of biomechanics. It's like, oh, by the way, in your pursuit of doing Pilates, it really helps to realize that core new tension is what it is. Because when you can embrace that, standing up straight, you also ought to be able to find it upside down, and it works just as easily in any orientation in space because it's a way of stretching the body. Excuse me. It's a way of stretching the body. Evaluate points of view. And then add 2 and 2. Let a person express a range of value, and some of which you establish on your own. Because time is a precious thing, add 2 and 2. Direct your thinking. Geist.